Hello there. Tonight, let's take a quiet swim into the heart of the ocean, where the currents are flowing and even the water is listening. This is not just any bedtime tale. It's a story about why things happen, not just the happy things, but the confusing things too. It's about how every little swirl and gentle pull of the water can be part of a bigger reason, guiding us even when we don't know where we're going. A story about trusting the journey. It's the story of Octavia, a cute baby sea otter with big sparkling eyes and soft fur, who feels safe in her cozy bed. Until one night, when the ocean carries her away, not with a shout, but with a soft, surprising drift. And tonight, maybe, Octavia's quiet journey will remind you, even when life unfolds in unexpected ways, there's often a hidden purpose, a lesson waiting to be found, because everything happens for a reason, and every experience, like a tiny seed, helps us grow. So if stories like this help you breathe a little easier, or feel a little more peaceful, you can gently help this little journey grow with a like, a comment, or a quiet share. It means more than you know. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. And if you'd like to share where you're listening from, we'd love to know what time it is for you and what your sky looks like tonight. Now, dim the lights, rest your hands, and let the world slow down. Just for a little while, take a soft breath in and a slower breath out. There you go. Let's begin our journey with a brave little otter, a big, beautiful ocean, and a heart that learns that everything happens for a reason, guiding us towards wisdom and peace all along the way. Deep in the big, blue, gentle ocean, where sunbeams dance like sparkling ribbons, there was a forest unlike any you have ever seen. It wasn't a forest of trees with leaves, but a forest of kelp, with long, soft green arms that swayed to the silent music of the water. This was the home of Octavia, a tiny baby sea otter with the biggest, most sparkling eyes you could ever imagine. Her fur was as soft as a cloud, and she spent her days floating happily on her back in a cozy bed made just for her from the softest leaves of kelp. Life, for Octavia, was perfect. It was a long, happy song, and she believed it would always be this way. Why wouldn't it be? The water was always warm, the sun was always bright, and her mama was always near. Octavia's most favorite thing to do, besides snuggling on her mama's tummy, was collecting shiny shells. She had a special little pouch in her fur where she kept her treasures. There was a swirly, pearly white shell that whispered secrets of the tides if you held it very close. There was a bumpy, sandy-colored shell that felt warm even in the cool water. And her most favorite of all, a small, smooth, shimmering shell that shone with all the colors of the rainbow when the light touched it just right. Every morning, Octavia would wake up and wiggle her nose. Her mama would be there, humming a soft tune. "Good morning, my little spark," Mama would say, her voice as gentle as the lapping waves. "The ocean has sung a new song for us today." Octavia loved her mama's songs. They were songs about the world around them. One song was about how everything in the great wide ocean is connected. "Nothing is ever truly alone, my dear Octavia," her mama would sing. "The little fish who tickles your toes is a cousin to the great whale who sings in the deep. The kelp that holds you safe is fed by the sun from high above. Everything is connected in a great, beautiful dance." Octavia didn't understand all the words, but she felt them. She felt the warmth of the sun, the gentle rock of the water, and the safety of the kelp. And she knew she was part of something big and wonderful. Sometimes, Octavia would try to make her own perfect world even more perfect. She would gather her shiny shells and try to stack them on her tummy. One shell, then two, then a third, wobbly one on top. She would hold her breath, her big eyes wide with concentration, trying to build the most beautiful shell tower in the whole ocean. But then a little giggle would escape, her tummy would jiggle, and plink, plonk, splash. The shells would tumble back into the water around her. Octavia would burst into happy laughter, a sound like tiny bubbles popping on the surface, and dive to gather them all up again. She didn't mind. In her happy world, even the mistakes were fun. One afternoon, as she floated beside her mama, Octavia looked up at the endless blue above them. "Mama," she whispered, holding her favorite rainbow shell close. "Will it always be like this? So happy and warm and perfect?" Her mama looked at her with so much love in her eyes. She gently stroked Octavia's head with her paw. "Oh, my sweet little one," she said softly. "Life is like the ocean itself. It is always flowing, always changing. The tide comes in and the tide goes out. Storms may come and go, but they never last forever." Too, she gave Octavia a gentle nuzzle. "We cannot hold onto a sunbeam, we can only enjoy its warmth while it is here. Nothing stays exactly the same, and that is what makes every moment so precious." Octavia snuggled closer. The idea of things changing felt a little strange, a little scary. She liked things just the way they were. She wanted to hold this perfect moment, right here, forever. Her mama seemed to understand. "But one thing never changes," she whispered, wrapping her arms around Octavia in a big, warm hug. "My love for you, that is as deep and as constant as the ocean itself." That evening, the sky was painted in the most beautiful colors Octavia had ever seen. Soft pinks and glowing oranges melted into a deep, gentle purple. The water grew still and quiet, and the moon began to rise, casting a silvery path across the surface. Octavia had spent the whole day playing, and her little body was tired. She had found a new shell, a deep blue one that looked like it held a tiny star inside. Yawning a big, sleepy yawn, she snuggled into her kelp bed. Her mama gently tucked the long, soft leaves around her, making sure she was snug and safe. Octavia felt so peaceful. The water was warm from the day's sun. The gentle rocking of the ocean was like a lullaby. She held her shiny rainbow shell tight in her paws, its smooth surface a familiar comfort. She closed her big, sparkling eyes and dreamed of sunshine and her mama's songs and endless towers of beautiful, shiny shells. And as Octavia slept, dreaming her happy, perfect dreams, the great ocean took a long, slow, silent breath. Deep beneath her, a current began to move. It wasn't a fast or frightening current. It was a quiet river within the sea, a secret pathway the water sometimes takes. Softly, gently, it nudged her little kelp bed. One by one, the soft green strands that held her to the forest floor loosened their hold, letting go without a sound. Slowly, so slowly, Octavia began to drift. She floated past sleeping fish and dreaming coral. The gentle current carried her away from the swaying kelp forest she knew as home, out into the quiet mystery of the open water. She didn't feel a thing. She was still wrapped in her dreams, her breathing soft and even, a tiny, peaceful bundle floating under the light of the moon. The ocean, in its vast and ancient wisdom, was carrying her on a new path, a journey she never expected. And as she drifted further and further into the big, blue unknown, She was still whispering in her sleep, dreaming her perfect dream, not knowing that when she awoke, her entire world would be changed forever. The first thing Octavia felt was the sun. It was different. Not the gentle, dappled warmth that filtered down through the swaying green leaves of her kelp forest, but a bright, wide-open warmth that covered her completely. It felt vast and unfamiliar. The quiet was different too. There was no soft rustle of kelp, no sleepy sighs from the other otters napping nearby. There was only a deep, low hum, the sound of the whole, giant ocean breathing around her, still half asleep. Octavia wiggled her nose and gave a soft little sigh, snuggling deeper into her bed. But her bed felt wrong. It wasn't the soft, tangled nest of kelp that her mama wove for her. It was just water. She clutched her shiny rainbow shell a little tighter in her paws. It was the only thing that felt the same. She slowly, sleepily opened her big, sparkling eyes, and then she saw it blue. Just blue. An endless, empty, shimmering blue that went on forever in every direction. There were no green arms of kelp to greet her, no sandy bottoms scattered with stones to look down upon, no familiar, friendly fish darting past. She was floating all alone in a place she had never, ever seen before. Everything was different. Her sleepy little heart gave a sudden thump. A confused feeling fluttered in her tummy. This wasn't right. This wasn't home. She lifted her head and looked to her left. Blue. She turned and looked to her right. More blue. She did a slow, clumsy paddle, spinning herself around in a full circle in the quiet, empty water. It was all the same. Big and wide and empty and blue. "Mama," she called out, but her voice was just a tiny squeak, a little puff of sound that the big, silent ocean swallowed right up. A shiver of cold fear, a feeling she had never felt before, prickled its way down her back. She tried again, her voice a little louder, a little more shaky. "Mama." The only answer was the quiet hum of the deep. Panic began to bubble up inside her chest. Where was her mama? Where was her soft kelp bed? Where was her perfect, happy world? It was gone. Everything was gone. She felt so tiny, so small, like a single speck of dust floating in the endless sky. Tears began to well up in her big, sparkling eyes, making the endless blue water look wobbly and strange. Why? The question popped into her head. Why was this happening? She had been a good little otter. She always listened to her mama's songs. She was always kind to the little crabs. She never strayed far. Life was supposed to be happy and perfect. It wasn't supposed to feel like this. It felt like she was being punished, but she didn't know what she had done wrong. It wasn't fair. Began to cry, her tiny body shaking with quiet sobs. Her tears were lost in the great big ocean, but her sadness felt bigger than all the water in the world. As she floated there, crying and feeling very sorry for herself, a long, dark shape drifted slowly by. It was lumpy and bumpy and moved. A sound. Octavia's eyes grew wide with terror. A sea monster, a long brown wobbly sea monster, had come to gobble her up. She let out a tiny gasp and quickly hid her face behind her tail, peeking out with one terrified eye. She held her breath, waiting for the monster to pounce. But the monster didn't pounce. It just drifted. It slowly tumbled end over end, and then it did a very strange thing. It puffed out a little cloud of sand from its back end and kept on, drifting as if nothing had happened at all. Octavia blinked. She peeked out from behind her tail a little more. It wasn't a scary monster. It was just a lumpy, bumpy sea cucumber. It was actually a little bit silly. For a tiny moment, forgot to be scared and just felt confused. But then the sea cucumber drifted away into the blue, and Octavia was all alone again. And the feeling of being lost and scared came rushing back, even bigger than before. She looked down at her paws and saw her favorite rainbow shell, the one she had held on to all night long. The light of the bright sun made it shimmer with pinks and greens and yellows. Her mama had once told her, "This shell holds all the colors of home, my little spark, so you can always carry a piece of our beautiful world with you." Seeing the shell, the last piece of her home, made her mama more than ever. A fresh wave of tears rolled down her furry cheeks. "Where is Mama?" she whispered to the little shell, her voice trembling. "I want to go home. I just want my mama." She hugged the shell to her chest and cried until she had no more tears left. Just a deep, hollow ache in her heart. She had always tried so hard to keep her world perfect, to control every happy moment, and now she had no control at all. She was completely, terribly lost. She floated for a long time, exhausted from her tears. The sun was warm on her fur, and the water rocked her gently, just as it always had. She remembered her mama's voice, as soft as a song. "Storms come, go," she had said, "but they do not last forever." This felt like the biggest storm in the world, even though there was no wind or rain, and it felt like it would last forever. But maybe Mama was right. Maybe it wouldn't. A tiny thought flickered inside her. Crying wasn't helping. Floating here and feeling sad wasn't going to bring her home. She had to do something. She didn't know what to do or which way to go, but she had to try. She had to find her mama. Taking a shaky breath, Octavia wet cheeks with the back of her paw. She looked one way into the endless blue, then the other. Neither way looked right, but she had to choose. She picked a direction, the one where the sun felt the warmest, and with a determined little flick of her tail she began to paddle. Her strokes were small and wobbly, but she kept going. She was still scared, and she still felt very, very small, but she was no longer just drifting. She was moving. She was on a journey, even if she didn't know where it would lead. The soft, shimmering blue stretched out endlessly around Octavia. She had cried until her little body felt wobbly and her eyes were dry, but the vast, empty ocean remained the same. Her tiny whisper for Mama had been swallowed whole, and the cold prickle of fear had settled deep in her fur. It wasn't fair, she thought, clutching her rainbow shell, the last warm piece of home she had. Why was this happening to her? She had always tried to be a good little otter, to keep her world perfect and happy. But now, everything felt terribly, completely lost. She felt so tiny, like a single speck of dust floating in the endless sky as she drifted, feeling very, very sorry for herself. A gentle, pulsing light began to appear in the distance. It was a soft, glowing orb, swaying gently with the unseen currents. Octavia, still a little jumpy from her sea cucumber encounter, squinted one eye open from behind her tail. Was it another strange, wobbly monster? Slowly, carefully, the light drifted closer. As it got nearer, Octavia could see it wasn't a monster at all. It was a jellyfish, shimmering with all the colors of a soft, sleepy rainbow. It swayed and pulsed, a silent, graceful dance in the blue. Octavia slowly lowered her tail, her big sparkling eyes wide with curiosity. The jellyfish was beautiful, unlike any fish she had ever seen in her kelp forest. It had long, delicate tendrils, that trailed behind it like silken ribbons, glowing softly as it moved. The jellyfish drifted even closer, until it was just a little float away from Octavia. It pulsed gently, and a soft, bubbly sound seemed to come from it. It was a very quiet sound, like tiny bells tinkling deep underwater. "Hello," the jellyfish seemed to hum, its light growing a little brighter. "Are you lost?" Octavia blinked. A talking jellyfish. She had never heard of such a thing, but its voice was very kind, and its glow was comforting. "Yes," she whispered, her voice still a bit shaky. I think so. I don't know where my home is, or my mama." A fresh pang of sadness tightened. In her chest, the jellyfish pulsed again, and its long tendrils seemed to droop a little. "Lost," it hummed. Lost. That's a familiar feeling, I think." It paused, its light flickering thoughtfully. "Are you a little fishy? Or a fluffy cloud?" Octavia giggled, a tiny, watery sound that surprised even herself. "I'm an otter," she explained, wiggling her nose. "A baby otter. My name is Octavia." The jellyfish pulsed excitedly. "Octavia, that's a lovely name." "My name is..." It paused again, and its light seemed to dim just a tiny bit as if it was searching for something. "Oh dear. I seem to have forgotten my name again." It gave a soft, wobbly sigh. "It happens all the time, you see. I forget where I'm going. I forget what I was doing. Sometimes I even forget which way is up." Octavia stared, a jellyfish who forgot its own name. That was certainly different. But despite its forgetfulness, there was something very gentle and kind about this glowing creature. "You forget your name?" Octavia asked, tilting her head. All the time, the jellyfish hummed, its light brightening with a ripple of what seemed to be amusement. "One moment it's right there, shimmering in my whatever this is." It wiggled its bell-shaped body, and the next, poof, gone, like a bubble in the ocean. It sighed again. "It can be a bit confusing. But then, everything is always changing. Isn't it?" Octavia thought about that. Her kelp forest was always gently swaying, and the sun moved across the sky. But this was different. This jellyfish seemed to forget big, important things, things that felt like they should always stay same. "Do you know where home is?" Octavia asked, her voice small. The jellyfish pulsed slowly. Home is a feeling, I think, like warmth or a soft hum." It drifted a little closer, its tendrils brushing gently against Octavia's fur. "But a specific home, a place with kelp and mama." It gave a wobbly shake of its bell. "No, I don't remember that. I just float. And sometimes I forget why I'm floating." A new feeling started to tickle Octavia's tummy, a little bubbly feeling. This jellyfish, who couldn't even remember its own name, didn't seem scared at all. It just kept floating, happy in its forgetfulness. Octavia had been so worried about everything being different, about being lost. But the jellyfish simply be. "But you don't look scared," Octavia observed. "Scared?" The jellyfish hummed, its light pulsing with what seemed like surprise. "Why would I be scared? The ocean is so big and full of water and light." It pulsed happily. "And sometimes, little otters who remember their names." Octavia couldn't help but let out another little giggle. This jellyfish was truly silly, but its silliness was also a little bit comforting. It was hard to be completely terrified when a glowing, forgetful jellyfish was happily wobbling beside you. "What's your name?" Octavia asked again, trying to help. The jellyfish pulsed. "Oh, right. My name, it's Nilo. Yes, Nilo. I think that's it. Its light glowed with renewed vigor. Hello, Octavia. It's very nice to meet you, Octavia. Are you still lost, Octavia? Octavia nodded. Yes, very lost. Nilo pulsed sadly. Oh, lost. That's no fun. No fun at all. Floating alone can be. Well, it can be alone. It drifted closer, its soft glow warming Octavia's face. I don't want you to be alone, Octavia. Even if I forget why you're here, or why I'm here, I don't want you to be alone. Octavia felt a warm flutter in her chest. This forgetful jellyfish, who was just as lost in its own way, still cared if she was alone. It was a new feeling, a little spark of comfort in the vast blue. So Nilo hummed, its light pulsing with a new idea. If you are lost, and I am, well, I am here. Perhaps we can be lost together. We can look for home, even if I forget what home looks like, or where we're going, we can look. Octavia's big eyes widened. Look for home, with a jellyfish who forgot everything. It sounded a little bit silly, and maybe a little bit impossible. But it also sounded like she wouldn't be alone anymore. And after being so alone, that felt like the most important thing. But which way do we go? Octavia asked, looking around at the endless blue. Nilo pulsed thoughtfully. Which way? Up, down, sideways. It all looks rather blue. It drifted in a tiny circle. But perhaps, if we just keep moving, we will find something. Or remember something. Or perhaps something will find us. Octavia thought about it. Floating here, crying, hadn't helped her find home. And this strange, kind, forgetful jellyfish seemed perfectly content to simply drift and trust that things would unfold. Mama always said, storms come and go, but they do not last forever. Maybe being lost was a kind of storm, and she just needed to keep moving through it. A tiny bit of hope, like a tiny bubble, floated up in Octavia's chest. She still missed her mama terribly, and her heart still ached for her soft kelp bed, but she wasn't completely alone anymore. She had Nilo, the jellyfish, who forgot everything but still knew how to be kind. Okay, Octavia whispered, a little stronger this time. Okay, Nilo, let's go. Let's find home together. Nilo pulsed with delight, its entire body glowing brighter. Wonderful. A journey. I love journeys. Even if I forget where we started or where we're going, the journey itself is here and now, and we are not alone. And so, with a determined little flick of her tail and a gentle, pulsing guidance of her new, forgetful friend, Octavia began to paddle. Her strokes were still small and wobbly, and the ocean still felt vast, but now, a little light drifted beside her, reminding her that even when things were different and confusing, there was always a way to keep moving forward. She was on a journey, and for the first time since waking up in the endless blue, she felt a tiny spark of something besides fear. She was still scared, and she still felt very, very small, but she was no longer just drifting. She was moving, and she was not alone. They would find home, together, even if Nilo forgot the way 100 times. The soft, comforting glow of Nilo, the forgetful jellyfish, drifted beside Octavia as they paddled through the endless blue. Octavia's tiny strokes were still wobbly, but she felt a little less small now that she wasn't completely alone. Nilo hummed soft, bubbly tunes, occasionally forgetting the melody halfway through, which made Octavia giggle despite her lingering worry. They had been swimming for what felt like a very long time. The vast, empty blue had slowly begun to change. First, tiny specks of color appeared in the distance. Then soft, undulating shapes, like sleepy, colorful clouds floating in the water. As they swam closer, the shapes grew larger and clearer, revealing a magnificent underwater reef. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, unlike anything Octavia had ever seen in her familiar kelp forest. Tall, intricate structures of vibrant coral rose from the ocean floor, reaching towards the surface like ancient, silent trees made of stone. Some corals were brilliant pinks and oranges, others deep purples and blues, creating a dazzling mosaic of color. Tiny, sparkling fish darted in and out of the coral branches, flashing like jewels. Nilo hummed, its light pulsing with delight. "Look, Octavia, so many things and colors." It drifted closer to a particularly large, brain-shaped coral, its tendrils gently brushing against the coral's bumpy surface. Octavia's eyes, still wide with wonder, slowly scanned the vibrant reef. It was beautiful, yes, but it was also different. Not the familiar, comforting sway of her kelp forest. This place felt ancient and vast, and somehow a little bit mysterious. As they drifted deeper into the reef, a strange sensation began to prickle Octavia's fur. It was a subtle feeling at first, like a tiny vibration in the water, but then it grew stronger, like a whisper carried on the currents. It wasn't Nilo's gentle hum, nor the soft rush of the ocean breathing around them. This was a different kind of sound. It was the coral. The massive, colorful structures seemed to be whispering. Octavia paused her paddling, her ears twitching. Had she heard that right? She looked at Nilo, but the jellyfish was happily swaying, completely engrossed in a small school of neon yellow fish flitting past. The whispers grew clearer, seeping into the water around them. It wasn't just one voice, but many, overlapping and echoing through the coral passages. "Lost little otter," one whisper seemed to say. "So far from home," another echoed. Octavia felt a shiver run down her back, colder than the ocean water. These whispers weren't kind like Nilos humming. They were low and mournful, filled with a deep, unsettling sadness. "You're lost," the coral seemed to sigh, its colors seeming to dim slightly around them. "You'll never go home." Octavia's heart gave a sudden, painful thump. The joy and wonder she had felt just moments before evaporated, replaced by the familiar ache of fear and loneliness. The words of the coral wrapped around her like cold seaweed, pulling her down. "You're lost. You'll never go home." It was exactly what she had been afraid of, deep down, ever since she woke up in the big blue. The coral, wise and ancient, was confirming her worst fears. "Never go home," Octavia whispered, her voice trembling. But I have to. My mama is waiting." The coral seemed to hum a mournful reply. "The currents are strong. The ocean is vast. Little otters are so small." A wave of despair washed over Octavia. She felt her small paws begin to falter in the water. What was the point of paddling if the coral, with all its ancient wisdom, knew she would never find her way back? The whispers pressed in on her, making the sparkling fish and vibrant colors of the reef seem dull and hopeless. "This is it," she thought, a tear beginning to well in her big, sparkling eye. "I really am lost forever." She almost believed the coral. She almost gave up. But then, as she floated there, sinking deeper into sadness, another sound began to echo in her mind. It wasn't a whisper from the coral, but a different kind of sound. A soft, warm, gentle sound. It was her mama's voice. "Storms come and go," Mama had said, her voice like a soft song. But they do not last forever. Octavia remembered Mama's warm fur, the way she would nuzzle her head, and the gentle strength in her voice. Mama always knew how to make things better. Mama believed in her. The whispers of the coral tried to creep back in. You're lost, you'll never go home. But this time, they didn't feel as strong. They were still there, but Mama's voice, even though it was only in her memory, felt stronger. Mama also said, "You are strong inside." Octavia squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, clutching her rainbow shell. She could almost feel her Mama's hug. The coral might whisper sad things, but Mama's voice was filled with love and hope. And Mama wouldn't want her to give up. A tiny spark flickered inside Octavia, a spark of stubborn courage. She remembered the sea cucumber she had mistaken. A monster. Things weren't always what they seemed. Maybe the coral was just sad, or maybe it didn't know everything. Maybe the whispers were just whispers. Octavia opened her eyes. The coral was still shimmering, and the fish was still darting, but the mournful whispers seemed a little less loud now. She looked at Nilo, who was still happily watching the fish, completely oblivious to the coral's dark predictions. Nilo didn't let forgetfulness stop him from moving forward. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Octavia straightened her little body in the water. Her heart, which had been thumping with fear, now felt a little stronger. She might be lost, yes, but she was going to let the sad whispers of the coral tell her she would never go home. Mama's voice, soft and loving, was a promise, with a renewed sense of purpose. Octavia gave a determined flick of her tail. Her small paws began to paddle with a stronger, steadier rhythm. She moved forward, past the whispering coral, its mournful words behind. She was still scared, but a new kind of strength, like a tiny warm glow, was growing inside her. She wouldn't just drift anymore, listening to sad whispers. She would swim. She would find her Mama. The sun filtered down in shimmering rays, painting the water in shifting patterns of light and shadow as Octavia and Nilo continued their journey through the coral reef. Octavia felt a little bit braver now, her small heart strengthened by the memory of her Mama's voice, even after the coral's sad whispers. Nilo, of course, was happily humming and occasionally bumping gently into a particularly bright patch of anemones, completely forgetting what they were looking for, but always remembering that Octavia was there, and that felt important. As they swam deeper into the reef, the vibrant colors of the coral began to give way to areas with more open sand patches, dotted with seagrass and interesting rock formations. Octavia peered ahead, her sparkling eyes scanning for anything new, anything that might be a clue leading them closer to home. Suddenly, a flash of bright red scurried out from behind a bumpy green sea sponge. It was a little crab, a very round, very red crab with two tiny eyes that seemed to be constantly swiveling around. He looked quite startled. The little crab froze, his claws raised in a comical defensive pose. His eyes, already wide, seemed to grow even wider as he spotted Octavia and Nilo. Then, in a flurry of tiny legs, he did something very, very silly. He began to dance. It wasn't a graceful dance, like the sway of kelp, or a gentle pulse, like Nilos movement. This was a sideways scuttle, a frantic jig, as if he were trying to run away in every direction at once, while staying in the same spot. His tiny legs moved so fast they were a blur, and his little red body bounced up and down. Octavia stared, completely bewildered. Then, a little giggle bubbled up from deep inside her. The crab looked so terribly serious about his silly dance, his eyes full of fear that it was impossible not to laugh. It was a proper, happy giggle, the kind she hadn't felt since she woke up lost. Nilo, alerted by Octavia's giggle, pulsed with curiosity. Oh, a bouncy, red pebble. He hummed, drifting closer. The crab, still dancing his frantic sideways jig, seemed to squeak. Goodness gracious. A floating light and a furry thing. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. He squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, still dancing, then opened one eye to peek at them. Hello, Octavia said, still giggling a little. Why are you dancing like that? The crab stopped his frantic jig with an abrupt halt, almost toppling over. He seemed to gather himself, then cleared his throat, making a funny little clicking sound. Ah, well, ahem, that, my dear floating friends, is my scaredy pants, Scuttle. He puffed out his chest, which made him look even more comically round. It's what I do when I'm a bit nervous. And I'm almost always a bit nervous. You see, he twitched one of his antennae. The ocean is simply full of so many surprises. Octavia couldn't help but smile. He might be nervous, but he was also very funny. My name is Octavia, she said, and this is Nilo, who was still peering curiously at the crab. Nilo, the jellyfish hummed cheerfully. I like that name. Did you just make it up, bouncy red pebble? The crab's eyes swiveled between Octavia and Nilo Pebble. Goodness no, I'm Charco, and I'm a crab. A very, very nervous crab, at your service. Though my service mostly involves, well, scuttling. He did a tiny, nervous, sideways shuffle with one leg. Why are you nervous all the time, Charco? Octavia asked. Charco sighed, a tiny puff of bubbles. Oh goodness, where to begin? There are big fish and sneaky eels. And even the sand sometimes looks a bit lumpy. It's simply too much excitement for a little crab like me. He wrung his tiny claws together. I just prefer things to be predictable, calm, like a nice, quiet rock. Octavia understood that feeling. She had always wanted her life to be predictable and perfect, just like her kelp forest home. And look where that had gotten her. Do you tell jokes to Charco? Octavia asked, remembering his introduction. Jokes? Charco perked up a tiny bit, his eyes brightening. Oh yes, I have a joke for every nervous occasion. Why did the oyster cross the road? He paused, looking expectantly at Octavia. Shook her head, curious. I don't know, Charco. Why? To get to the other tide, Charco exclaimed, letting out a series of high-pitched, excited clicks that sounded like tiny giggles. He then immediately did another quick, nervous, scaredy-pants scuttle, as if the excitement of his own joke was too much. Octavia burst into laughter again. It was a truly silly joke, but Charco's delivery and his nervous dance were simply hilarious. The sound of her own laughter felt warm and bubbly, like the sunlight on the surface. That was a good one, Charco, she said, wiping a tear of laughter from her eye. You make me laugh. Charco beamed, his little red face looking genuinely pleased. I do, oh goodness. That's rather nice. Making someone laugh, it takes my mind off all the nervousness for a bit. Octavia then told Charco and Nilo about her search for home, about her mama and the warm kelp bed, and how she was trying to find her way back. Nilo listened, pulsing gently, occasionally forgetting parts of the story and asking, Happened, Octavia? Did the fluffy cloud find its way? Charco listened intently, twitching his antennae. Home, you say? A place with no sneaky eels, perhaps, and perfectly unlumpy sand. He wrung his claws again. It sounds rather delightful, and perhaps less surprising than the rest of the ocean. Octavia nodded. It's the best place. It's safe and happy, and my mama is there. Charco paced back and forth in a tiny circle. Well, goodness. A journey to a non-surprising, happy place. That sounds rather appealing, even for a nerd like myself. He looked at Octavia, then at Nilo. You two seem, well, you seem to be going somewhere, and you laugh at my jokes. He did a tiny, almost invisible, happy scuttle. Perhaps I could come with you. I could tell jokes, and do my scaredy-pants scuttle when things get too unexpected. And I could warn you about lumpy sand. Octavia's heart swelled. Another friend, a funny, nervous crab who made her laugh. After feeling so alone, having Nilo and now Charco felt like a warm, comforting hug. Yes, Charco, please come with us. Nilo pulsed brightly. More friends. This journey is getting very, oh, what was the word? Fun. Yes. Fun. And so, with Octavia leading the way, Nilo glowing gently beside her, and Charco scuttling along just behind them, occasionally stopping for a nervous dance or to tell a joke about a fish and a seaweed costume. The three new friends continued. Their journey. The ocean still felt vast and full of surprises, but now it also felt a little less scary and a lot more full of laughter and the promise of friendship. Even when things were difficult, having friends made the journey feel less like a punishment and more like an adventure. The quiet hum of the deep ocean surrounded Octavia, Nilo, and Charco as they ventured further from the colorful reef. The vibrant hues of the coral slowly gave way to a deeper, more muted blue, and the playful darting of small, bright fish became less frequent. The water here felt different, somehow older and more mysterious. It grew quieter too, the gentle rush of currents softening into a hushed stillness. Octavia paddled slowly, her big sparkling eyes scanning the dim surroundings. Even Nilo, usually humming a bubbly tune, seemed to pulse a little more softly, as if respecting the solemn quiet of this part of the ocean. Charco, the nervous crab, was exceptionally quiet, clinging tightly to Octavia's side, his tiny legs barely scuttling. He kept his eyes wide and unblinking, occasionally whispering. Lumpy shadows. Very lumpy shadows, making Octavia feel a tiny bit braver just by hearing him. Then, appearing like ghostly giants in the hazy distance, Octavia saw them. Enormous, dark shapes resting on the sandy ocean floor. As they drifted closer, the shapes resolved into something both awe-inspiring and a little bit frightening. Big, broken ships. These were not the lively, bustling places she had imagined human ships to be from her mama's stories, but silent, decaying relics, their wooden ribs exposed like the bones of ancient sea creatures. Their masts lay broken, their sails long, since dissolved into the currents, leaving behind only the skeletal remains of what they once were. "Oh, goodness gracious," Charco whispered, his voice a tiny squeak. "Giant, rusty monsters. Are they sleeping? Do they snore?" He instinctively began his scared-a-pants scuttle, a quiet, almost imperceptible twitching of his legs as he tried to hide behind Octavia. Nilo pulsed, his light flickering curiously. Big, big rocks, with holes. "Can we float inside the holes, Octavia?" Octavia felt a shiver prickle her fur, a mixture of wonder and a tiny hint of fear. These ships were so massive, so still, so out of place in the living ocean. They felt like secrets, left behind by a world she didn't know. but her otter curiosity, always strong, tugged at her. She wanted to see inside. She slowly approached the largest of the ships, its stern towering above them like a dark, silent mountain. A gaping hole, once perhaps a grand entrance, now led into the shadowy interior. The water inside looked even darker, more mysterious. "Are you sure, Octavia?" Charco whispered, his eyes wide. "It looks very uncalm in there, very unpredictable." "It's just an old ship, Charco," Octavia said, trying to sound brave, though her heart was thumping a little faster. "It can't hurt us." She looked at Nilo, who was already drifting towards the opening, his soft glow illuminating the edges of the dark entrance. "Looks like a very cozy cave," Nilo hummed, floating right through the opening. "Hello. Is anyone home? Cozy cave." Octavia followed, with Charco clinging tightly to her tail, his tiny claws tickling her fur. Inside, the ship was even darker, the remaining sunlight barely piercing the gloom. Strange shadows danced and stretched with the gentle sway of the water. Broken timbers lay scattered and silent. Shadowy fish occasionally glided past, their scales barely visible in the dim light. It smelled of old wood. And the deep ocean, Octavia explored slowly, nudging aside pieces of rotting rope and ancient, waterlogged fabric with her nose. She imagined what these ships must have been like when they were alive, floating on the surface, full of bustling sounds and human voices. Now, only the quiet hum of the deep remained, as she nosed deeper into a particularly dark corner. What looked like the remnants of a captain's cabin, her paw brushed against something small and smooth. It was cool and round against her fur. Curious, Octavia brought it closer, turning it over in her paws. It was a pearl, not like any shell she had ever collected. This pearl was perfectly spherical, with a soft, iridescent sheen, almost as if it held a tiny, captured moonbeam within it. As her paw fully enclosed it, a soft, warm glow emanated from within the pearl, bathing her paws in a gentle light. Octavia gasped softly, her eyes wide with wonder. The pearl pulsed with a delicate inner radiance. A warm light seemed to chase away the shadows in the old ship. "A glowy thing," Nilo hummed, drifting over quickly, his light mingling with the pearls. "It's very pretty, Octavia. Can it forget its glow, like I forget my name?" Charco, out from behind Octavia's tail, let out a tiny, nervous gasp. A glowing orb. Is it a trap? Goodness gracious. Do glowy orbs have teeth? I don't like teeth. Octavia held the pearl carefully, mesmerized. It wasn't just beautiful, it felt special. It felt magical. Its warmth spread paws, a comforting sensation in the cold, dark ship. She clutched it tight, feeling a deep connection to this unexpected treasure. They spent a little longer exploring the quiet. Strange ships, but the glowing pearl was the most fascinating discovery. As the light from the surface began to fade further, signaling the approach of night, Octavia decided it was time to find a safe place to rest. They found a sheltered nook within the wreckage, a little pocket of calm protected from currents that night, as Nilo pulsed a soft lullaby which he forgot and restarted several times, and Charco curled into a tiny ball, muttering about the possibility of sleepwalking sharks. Octavia held the glowing pearl close to her chest. Its soft light cast dancing patterns on the shadowy walls of the sunken ship, illuminating the gentle sway of her fur as she drifted off to sleep. And, as she slept, cradled by the quiet ocean and warmed by the pearl's gentle glow, Octavia, the most beautiful dream, she was back home. She felt the familiar, soft tangle of her kelp bed beneath her. She heard the gentle rustle of the green leaves and the sleepy sighs of her otter family nearby. And then she felt it. The softest, warmest, most comforting embrace she knew. It was her mama's hug, strong and loving, holding her close, safe and sound. She could smell mama's familiar scent of fresh kelp and warm sunshine. In her dream, she giggled, feeling perfectly happy, perfectly safe, perfectly home. She even heard mama's soft voice, singing a lullaby just for her. The dream was so real, so vivid, that when Octavia slowly stirred in the early morning light, the first thing she felt was a pang of longing. She squeezed the pearl in her paws. It was still glowing, a faint, comforting warmth against her fur. The dream might have been just a dream, but the pearl felt like a tiny piece of that warmth, a reminder that home and mama's hugs were real, and waiting for her somewhere in the vast ocean. The morning light filtered softly into the quiet nook of the sunken ship, painting gentle patterns on Octavia's fur. She stirred, a soft sigh escaping her, still half dreaming of mama's warm hugs. Her paw instinctively reached for the glowing pearl she had clutched all night, the one that had filled her dreams with the comforting images of home. But her paw met only cold, empty water. Octavia's eyes snapped open, wide and sparkling with sudden alarm. She fumbled frantically, her small paws searching in the dim light of the wreckage. Her heart, which had felt so light just moments ago, plummeted like a stone. The pearl, it was gone. Panic began to bubble in her chest, hot and sharp. "Nilo," she shouted, her voice trembling. "The pearl, it's not here." Nilo roused from his gentle pulsing, drifted over, his light flickering with sleepy confusion. The glowy thing, did it float away to find its own name, Octavia? Charco, who had been curled up tightly, his eyes still squeezed shut against potential morning surprises, suddenly unfurled with a tiny shriek. Gone. Oh goodness gracious, is it a sneaky, invisible monster? I knew this quiet place was strange. He immediately began his rapid fire, nervous scared-pants scuttle, his tiny legs a blur as he bounced on the spot. Octavia ignored them, her gaze fixed on the empty space where the pearl had been. It was the last piece of her home, the magical object that had given her such a vivid dream of Mama, and now it was gone. Everything felt wrong again. A wave of profound sadness washed over her, making the already dim interior of the sunken ship feel utterly desolate. Tears welled up in her big, sparkling eyes, making the shadowy shapes of the wreckage blur and wobble. "It's gone," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "My pearl, my home." And then a new heavy feeling settled in her heart. Blame. Why did I let it go, she thought. I should have held it tighter. I should have kept it safe. It's all my fault. I messed up. Now I'll never find home, and it's because I wasn't careful enough. The thought twisted in her tummy, sharper than any hunger pang. She had always tried so hard to keep her world perfect, to control every happy moment, and now she had no control at all. She was completely, terribly lost. Octavia buried her face in her paws, letting out quiet, heartbroken sobs. Her small body shook with despair. The pearl was gone, and with it, all the hope she had felt. She was just a tiny speck of dust, lost forever in the endless blue. A Charco, still doing his nervous scuttle, cautiously approached Octavia. He cleared his throat, making a soft, clicking sound. "Ahem, Octavia. Don't cry, goodness gracious. Crying makes things, well, it makes things wet." And already the ocean is quite wet, you see. He tried a small, encouraging hop. Perhaps it's not truly gone. Perhaps it's just playing a very, very sneaky game of hide-and-seek. Octavia didn't respond, her sobs continuing to shake her small frame. Charco looked helplessly at Nilo, who just pulsed softly, completely at a loss. Charco then bravely shuffled a little closer to Octavia. "Don't be sad, Octavia. I have a joke. A very good joke, perfect for a gloomy situation." He puffed out his chest, trying to be brave. "What do you call a fish with no eyes?" Octavia only sobbed harder. Charco waited, wiggling his antennae nervously. "No eyes, oh dear. You're supposed to guess. It's AFSH. He clicked out a little nervous giggle, then glanced at Octavia. Her shoulders were still shaking. "Get it? No eyes." Octavia lifted her head slightly, her face tear-streaked. She looked at Charco, and her expression was filled with such deep, profound sadness that Charco's attempt at humor felt completely out of place. There was no trace of a smile, no hint of a giggle. Just pure, unadulterated heartbreak. Little antennae drooped. His nervous scuttle slowed, then stopped entirely. The silence, broken only by Octavia's soft sobs, felt heavy and awkward. He looked at the floor, then at Nilo, then back at Octavia. Her sadness was bigger than any joke, bigger than any nervous dance. He couldn't make it better. He couldn't make her laugh, feeling completely useless and terribly uncomfortable. Charco's eyes widened with his own nervousness. He hated sadness, especially sadness he couldn't fix. It made him feel very, very worried. With a tiny, almost soundless gulp, Charco slowly, quietly began to scuttle backwards. One step, then another, until he disappeared into the deeper shadows of the sunken ship, leaving Octavia and Nilo alone with the heavy silence. He didn't want to leave Octavia sad, but he didn't know what to do, and the sadness felt like another big, scary surprise. The echoes of Octavia's quiet sobs were the only sounds in the dim, silent nook of the sunken ship. The pearl, her beautiful, glowing pearl, was truly gone. She felt a deep, hollow ache in her heart, convinced it was all her fault. Charco was, unable to bear the sadness, had scuttled away into the shadows, leaving Octavia and Nilo alone. Now Nilo, sensing Octavia's profound sadness, pulsed gently beside her. He didn't quite understand what a pearl was, or why it being gone made Octavia cry so much, but he knew his little otter friend was hurting. His soft glow was the only comfort in the gloom, as Octavia slowly lifted her tear-streaked face. Her big sparkling eyes, red-rimmed from crying, caught a faint flicker of movement in the shadows. Something long and thin, with a slippery, shimmering skin, was slinking away from the very spot where the pearl had been. And then she saw another and another. Their bodies were dark and sleek, almost invisible in the dim light. But she caught a quick glimpse of something small and round being nudged along by one of them. Eels. Sneaky eels. A flash of anger, hot and surprising, surged through Octavia. They took it, her pearl. They had stolen the last piece of her dream. Her sadness didn't disappear, but a tiny spark of determination, fueled by a fierce desire to get her pearl back, ignited within her. She wasn't just sad anymore, she was determined. "Nilo," she whispered, her voice still shaky but firm. "It was the eels. They took my pearl. Look." She pointed a trembling paw towards the slinking shadows. Nilo pulsed, his light brightening as if he was finally understanding. Eels. Sneaky eels. Do they forget things to Octavia? Or do they just like glowy things? Without waiting for an answer, Octavia pushed herself forward. She wouldn't let them keep her pearl. Not after her dream. Not after how much it meant to her. She began to paddle, small but quick strokes, following the disappearing forms of the eels. The eels led them away from the comforting wreckage of the sunken ships and into even deeper, darker waters. The sunlight from the surface was now completely gone, swallowed by the immense depths. It grew colder, and the silence was profound, broken only by the gentle swish of their paws. Soon, a gaping blackness appeared before them. It was a cave, a deep, dark cave, its entrance like a giant, silent mouth in the ocean floor. The eels, shimmering faintly, slipped effortlessly into its shadowy depths. Charco, who had slowly and nervously scuttled back to them after realizing Octavia was moving, let out a tiny, high-pitched squeak. A cave, a deep, dark, very unpredictable cave. Oh, goodness gracious, it smells like shadows. He immediately started his most vigorous scaredy-pants scuttle, tiny clouds of sand puffing up around his legs. We shouldn't go in there, Octavia. Caves are full of surprises, and maybe very grumpy, sleepy monsters. Nilo, ever curious and utterly fearless, or perhaps just forgetful of what fear was, pulsed brightly. A new cozy cave, perhaps. The glowy thing is waiting inside. He drifted serenely towards the dark opening. Octavia hesitated for a moment. The cave looked truly scary. It was so dark she couldn't see anything inside, and the water felt heavy and cold. A shiver of fear ran down her spine, making her little body tremble. But then she remembered the pearl and the dream of Mama's hug. She had to get it back. She took a deep breath, clutching her rainbow shell tighter. "We have to, Charco," she said, trying to sound brave. "My pearl is in there." With Nilo drifting calmly ahead, his soft light barely piercing the darkness, and Charco reluctantly scuttling along behind, clinging once again to Octavia's tail with all his might. They entered the deep, dark cave. Inside, the darkness was absolute, thick and heavy like a velvet blanket. Nilo's glow seemed tiny in the vast blackness. Octavia could hear the muffled echoes of their own movements, and the quiet splash of water against unseen walls. She felt small, smaller than ever, swallowed whole by the cave. They swam deeper, following the faint, shimmering trails left by the eels. The air felt heavy, and the silence pressed in around them. Octavia tried to keep her fear at bay, focusing only on finding her pearl. Then, slowly, magically, lights began to appear on the cave walls. Not Nilo's soft glow, but different lights, shimmering and moving. As they swam closer, Octavia's eyes widened. The lights formed pictures of her home. There was the swaying kelp forest, its green leaves dancing in the sunlight. There was her mama, smiling, her fur warm and comforting. There were her otter friends, napping peacefully, their tails gently draped over their backs. She could almost hear Mama's lullaby, soft and sweet. "Look, Nilo, Charco," Octavia whispered, her voice filled with a desperate hope. "It's home. It's Mama." Her heart fluttered with excitement. Maybe the cave wasn't so scary after all. Maybe it was a magical place that could show her the way back. Nilo pulsed happily. "Home, is that what that is, Octavia? It looks very green and fluffy." Charco, peering from behind Octavia, stopped his nervous scuttle for a moment. "Oh goodness gracious, no sneaky eels, and the sand looks perfectly unlumpy. Perhaps this cave isn't so bad after all. Octavia reached out a paw towards the shimmering image of her mama, wanting to touch her, to feel her warm fur. But as her paw moved closer, the image shimmered, wavered, and then it stretched. It grew thin and distorted, like water ripples on a disturbed surface. The mama image elongated, her smile turned into a strange, stretched grin, and the kelp swayed unnaturally fast. Octavia stared, her hopeful smile fading. Something was wrong, very wrong. The images weren't real. They were just lights, tricks. They felt cold, not warm and comforting like her real home. The sadness she had felt earlier, the pain of knowing she was lost, came rushing back, but this time it was mixed with a bitter disappointment. The cave was trying to trick her. It was playing with her deepest wish. Her big, sparkling eyes narrowed, no longer innocent but filled with a new kind of understanding. These images were beautiful, yes, but they were empty. They weren't her mama. They weren't her home. She couldn't touch them, couldn't smell them, couldn't feel mama's hug. A new strength bloomed in Octavia's heart. She wouldn't be fooled. She took a deep, steadying breath. She had been so sad about losing the pearl, and then so angry at the eels. But now, seeing these fake images, she realized something important. Even if she couldn't see her real home, or touch her real mama, the feeling of home, the memory of mama's love, was always real inside her. No cave, no sneaky eel, no fake picture could take that away. She looked away from the shimmering illusions, and her gaze swept the dark cave floor below her. And there, tucked away near a jagged rock, barely visible in the gloom, was a faint, familiar glow. The pearl. It wasn't sparkling as brightly as it had been, perhaps a little dull from its journey with the eels, but it was there. Her pearl. A burst of renewed determination surged through Octavia. She wasn't scared anymore. Not of the dark cave, not of the sneaky eels, and certainly not of these fake pictures. She knew what was real. With a powerful flick of her tail, Octavia propelled herself downward, straight towards the pearl. She snatched it up in her paws, clutching it tightly. It felt warm and real, its soft glow returning as she held it. "I found it," Octavia whispered, a fierce little triumph in her voice. "They didn't trick me." Nilo pulsed excitedly. "Glowy thing found." "Hooray, Charco!" Seeing Octavia's renewed determination and the pearl's glow, poked his head out fully. "Oh, goodness gracious, a successful retrieval, and no sleepy, grumpy monsters. Perhaps this cave isn't so bad after all when you're leaving it." Octavia didn't linger. She knew these were not friendly images, and this was not a place to stay. Holding her pearl tight, and with a brave, determined flick of her tail, Octavia turned and swam swiftly back the way they had come, out of the deep, dark cave, leaving the false pictures and the sneaky eels behind. Nilo followed, his light bobbing. Charco, with renewed vigor, scuttled quickly behind Octavia, eager to leave the dark, unpredictable cave and its strange, untrustworthy illusions. Octavia knew now that true hope and true comfort didn't come from outside, but from the brave heart that knew the difference between what was real and what was only a trick. The deep, cold darkness of the sunken ship slowly gave way to the soft, shifting light of the open ocean once more. Octavia, clutching her precious pearl, emerged from the shadowy wreckage with Nilo pulsing happily beside her, and Charco scuttling with an almost joyous relief. The memory of the fake images in the cave still pricked at Octavia's heart, but finding her pearl and realizing the true strength of her own memories of home made her feel a quiet triumph. She wouldn't be fooled again. They swam onward, the water gradually warming as they moved away from the deep, still places. The ocean began to feel a little more alive, with gentle currents guiding them and tiny shimmering plankton drifting like scattered stardust. After some time, as the water started to lighten with the distant promise of more sun, they saw a large, rounded shape ahead. It was still, almost like a rock, but as they got closer, Octavia realized it wasn't a rock at all. It was a turtle. A very, very old turtle. This turtle was enormous. With a shell so ancient it looked like a tiny, craggy mountain covered in barnacles and soft green moss. His eyes, though very old, held a deep, gentle wisdom. But he wasn't moving. He was just floating, perfectly still, his flippers tucked neatly beneath his massive shell. Charco, always nervous, immediately began his very slow, very cautious, scaredy pants scuttle. Oh, goodness gracious, a giant unmoving rock. Is it perhaps a very, very sleepy monster? He peeked out from behind Octavia. It certainly looks very unpredictable in its stillness. Nilo, ever curious, drifted closer to the ancient turtle. Hello, are you a very big, very green pebble? Do you have a name, or do you forget it like I forget mine? The old turtle slowly, slowly opened one ancient eye. A soft sigh, like the gentle release of bubbles, escaped him. A name, he rumbled, his voice deep and slow, like the movement of ocean currents through ages of time. Yes, I believe I once had one, many, many moons ago. Some call me Maru, and you, little ones. Octavia felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. Maru's voice was so deep and peaceful, it felt like the ocean itself was speaking. I'm Octavia, she said, politely. And this is Nilo, and that's Charco. Maru's ancient eyes slowly moved to acknowledge each of them. Octavia, Nilo, Charco, welcome to my quiet place. I do not travel much anymore. My shell, it is my home. I simply float and dream. You dream? Octavia asked, remembering her own beautiful dream of home. Indeed, Maru rumbled, closing his eye again, a picture of peaceful stillness. I dream of maps. Maps of the ocean's paths, of currents and deep trenches, of stars above and coral gardens below. Maps that show where everything is and where everything leads. He sighed again, a soft, wistful sound. But when I wake, the maps, they vanish, like sea foam on the tide. I can never quite remember them. Octavia's heart ached with understanding. This wise old turtle knew paths and ways, but couldn't remember them, just like she couldn't remember how to get home. It was like having the answer so close, yet still out of reach. Oh goodness, Charco whispered, peeking from behind Octavia. A dream map. That sounds very unreliable. What if it leads to a place with extra lumpy sand? Nilo pulsed, his light dimming slightly in sympathy. Forgotten maps. That sounds very much like forgetting names, Maru. It's a bit confusing, isn't it? Octavia knew, deep down, that this old turtle might be able to help them. He understood journeys, even if he couldn't remember the maps. Taking a deep breath, Octavia began to tell Maru her story. She told him about her happy kelp forest home, about waking up alone in the vast blue, about the kind but forgetful Nilo, and the funny, nervous Charco. She told him about the whispering quarrel, and how Mama's voice had made her brave. And she told him about the sunken ships, finding the glowing pearl, and how the Sneaky Eels had stolen it, leading them into the dark cave with its fake pictures of home. She told him how she had found the pearl again, realizing that her true home was a feeling in her heart. Maru listened patiently, his ancient eyes remaining closed, his body perfectly still. Only the gentle rise and fall of his shell showed that he was listening. When Octavia finished, the quiet between them was deep and thoughtful. Finally, Maru slowly opened his eyes. They seemed to hold the wisdom of all the ages of the ocean. A journey, he rumbled softly, a long and winding current. You have learned much, little Octavia. You have faced fear and doubt and disappointment, and you have found strength within yourself. He paused. And a pearl that glows. A very special pearl. He then looked at Octavia's pearl, still clutched in her paws. The pearl, he said, his voice a little stronger. It holds echoes of the ocean's memories. And sometimes it can help a dream become clear. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the distant water in hues of orange and purple, Maru settled deeper into his shell, becoming even more still. Rest now, little ones, he rumbled. Let the ocean hum you to sleep. And perhaps tonight, the maps will remember me. Octavia, feeling a deep trust for the wise old turtle, found a comfortable spot near his ancient shell. Nilo pulsed, a gentle, sleepy rhythm, and Charco, surprisingly, managed to curl into a tiny ball without too much nervous fidgeting, comforted by Maru's steady presence. Octavia held her pearl close, its soft, inner glow a gentle comfort in the growing twilight. She hoped, with all her heart, that Maru's dreams would remember the way, as the deepest part of night settled over the ocean, casting the world in velvety blackness. A faint, ethereal glow began to emanate from Maru's shell. It was soft at first, like the shimmer of distant starlight. Then, slowly, almost magically, the glow formed lines and shapes upon his ancient shell. It was a map, a shimmering, glowing map, drawn not with ink, but with light and memory. The lines swirled and spiraled, showing currents and passages. There were hints of dark places and bright, inviting ones. And then a clear, luminous path began to form, a path that twisted and turned, but unmistakably seemed to lead somewhere. It was a path home. The wise turtle, Maru, was dreaming again, and his dream was painting the way. Octavia watched, her eyes wide with a quiet awe. The pearl in her paws seemed to pulse in rhythm with the glowing map, as if they were connected in the morning. When the first soft light of dawn touched the ocean, the glowing map on Maru's shell began to fade, slowly dissolving back into the barnacles and moss. Maru slowly opened his eyes, a deep, peaceful calm within them. The dream, he rumbled, his voice still heavy with sleep. It was clearer tonight. There is a path, little Octavia, a glowing path. It showed me a journey, not a straight line, but one filled with twists and turns. It might lead you home. He paused, his gaze fixed on Octavia's pearl. The pearl, it helped the dream remember. Octavia looked at the spot where the map had been, then back at Maru. She knew he couldn't draw it again, couldn't tell them exactly where to go, but she had seen it, a path home, a path she had to find. A new surge of determination filled her. This was it, this was the way. The ocean, through the wise old turtle's dream, was showing her the next step. She might not know all the turns, but she had a path now, and she had her friends and her glowing pearl. The soft glow of dawn painted the ocean in gentle hues of pink and gold as Octavia, Nilo, and Charco prepared to leave the wise old turtle. Maru Octavia held her pearl close, feeling its familiar, comforting warmth. Maru's dream map, though now faded from his shell, remained vivid in Octavia's mind, a shimmering path, promising a way home, even if it was full of twists and turns. "Are you sure this dream map is reliable? Goodness gracious," Charco whispered, doing a tiny, nervous scuttle. "Dreams can be very unpredictable. What if it leads to a place with extra bumpy sand, or even worse, a place with sleepy fish?" "Who don't tell jokes?" Nilo pulsed brightly. A path is always good. Even if I forget where it started or where it's going, it means we are moving." Octavia smiled, a quiet confidence in her sparkling eyes. "Maru is wise, Charco, and my pearl feels special. We have a path now. We just have to follow it." She gave a determined flick of her tail. "Let's go." And so, the three friends set off once more, swimming away from Maru's peaceful, ancient presence. The pearl, nestled in Octavia's paws, began to glow with a gentle, steady light. Not just its usual soft radiance, but something new. It pulsed, rhythmically, like a tiny heartbeat, and as it glowed, little pictures, like tiny, shimmering bubbles, began to form within its depths. Octavia watched, mesmerized. The first picture was beautiful. It showed her kelp forest, bathed in warm sunshine, her mama smiling and playing with her. She saw herself floating on her back, happy and safe, surrounded by her family. It was a picture of perfect peace, a glimpse of the home she longed for. A warm, hopeful feeling spread through Octavia's chest, like sunshine on her fur dot. Nilo drifted closer, his own light mingling with the pearls. "Oh, more pretty pictures. Is that a very big green noodle?" "It looks very soft, Octavia." Charco, peering over Octavia's shoulder, squeaked with delight. "No bumpy sand, and no sneaky eels. That looks like a very calm place. Goodness gracious." But then, the picture in the pearl shifted. The happy kelp forest faded, replaced by something new. This picture was darker, less comforting. Octavia saw herself swimming through a shadowy, winding passage, the walls of the ocean closing in around her. She saw swirling water pulling her around and around. She even saw a brief flash of a very big, very grumpy-looking fish with sharp teeth. It was only a tiny glimpse, but it sent a shiver of fear down her spine. Octavia gasped, her paws instinctively tightening round the pearl. Her breath hitched in her throat. Scary things. The pearl was showing her scary things that might happen on their journey. Her brave resolve, which had felt so strong just moments ago, began to wobble. The ocean was already so big and full of surprises, and now the pearl was showing her more, even scarier ones. "Oh goodness gracious," Charco squeaked, seeing the shadowy image. "Did you see that? A very unfriendly fish." "I knew this path would have surprises. Maybe we should just float here and tell jokes instead, Octavia." He started his fast, nervous, scaredy-pants scuttle, trying to make himself small. The jellyfish, Nilo, ever serene, merely pulsed. "More pictures. The glowy thing is very clever, Octavia. It shows all sorts of things. Big fishy things and little fluffy things." But Octavia was focused on the scary pictures. The pearl showed another flash, herself, all alone, feeling very, very lost, even more lost than when she woke up. The image brought back the cold, tight feeling in her tummy. the overwhelming despair she had felt before meeting Nilo. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, tears threatening to well up again. What if I can't do it? What if it's too hard? She remembered the whispering quarrel, telling her she would never go home, and she remembered how sad she felt when she thought the fake pictures in the cave were real. This pearl, this magical guide, was showing her fears, making them seem even more real. A deep sigh escaped her, a mixture of fear and exhaustion. She just wanted to be home, safe with her mama. This journey was so long, so full of challenges. Why did she have to see all the hard parts before they even happened? But as she held the pearl, feeling its warm, steady glow against her fur, another memory, strong and clear, came to her. It was her mama's voice, not a soft song this time, but firm and loving. "You were strong inside, my little spark," Mama had said, "stronger than you know." Octavia slowly opened her eyes. The pearl was still glowing, still showing little flickers of both happy and scary things. The fear was still there, a tight knot in her tummy. But Mama's words were also there, a warm, steady presence in her heart. She looked at the pearl, then at Nilo, who was drifting peacefully, unbothered by the scary images. Then at Sharko, still doing his nervous scuttle, but still there, by her side. They were with her. She wasn't alone, and she had come so far. She had faced the vast, empty ocean, the whispering coral, the dark cave and its tricks, and even the loss of her pearl. She had always kept going, even when she was scared. Taking a deep, shaky breath, Octavia pressed the glowing pearl close to her chest, holding it not just as a guide, but as a reminder of her own strength. Her voice, though soft, was clear and determined. "I'll keep going," she whispered, looking at the pearl, then out into the endless blue. No matter what, the words felt like a promise, not just to the pearl or to her friends, but to herself. She might be scared, the journey might be full of scary surprises, but she would keep paddling. She would keep trusting. She would keep believing that everything happened for a reason, even the scary parts. Because sometimes, knowing what might happen, even if it's a little bit scary, helps you get ready. And it reminds you that you are brave enough to face it. The pearl pulsed brighter in her paws, as if in agreement, and Octavia, holding it tight, continued her journey. Her heart a little bit braver, a little bit stronger, ready for whatever the glowing path might show. The glowing pearl pulsed steadily in Octavia's paws, its light a small beacon in the vast blue. She held it close, remembering her promise. "I'll keep going no matter what." The scary pictures the pearl had shown still lingered in her mind, like distant shadows, but the feeling of Mama's love and her own newfound bravery felt stronger. Nilo drifted serenely beside her, his soft hum a constant comfort, while Choco, still a bit nervous from the dark cave and the pearl's alarming visions, bravely scuttled along just behind, occasionally muttering, "No lumpy surprises, please." Goodness gracious. As they swam, the water around them began to change again. The deep, dark blue slowly brightened, and the currents grew gentle, almost lazy. The ocean floor, instead of jagged rocks or mysterious shipwrecks, transformed into a wide expanse of soft, shimmering sand. It stretched out endlessly, like a golden carpet under the water. "Oh," Nilo hummed, his light pulsing with delight. "So much soft ground. Can we float on the soft ground, Octavia?" Charco cautiously poked his head out from behind Octavia. "Sand, and it looks perfectly unlumpy. Perhaps this part of the path isn't so bad after all." He even risked a tiny, happy-sounding scuttle, Octavia glided down towards the sandy bottom, her paws barely stirring the fine grains. The sand here was different. It wasn't rough or gritty. It felt incredibly soft, like the finest powder, cool and smooth against her fur. And then she heard it. A sound, not a splash or a hum or a squeak. This was a sound that seemed to come from the sand itself, a gentle, whispered melody. It was like many tiny voices singing together in a soft, murmuring chorus. A lullaby. It was the singing sand. Octavia paused, her eyes wide with wonder. The melody was ethereal, drifting on the gentle currents, wrapping around her like a warm blanket. It was the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. And as she listened, a particular tune, familiar and deeply loved, began to stand out from the soft chorus. It was her mama's song, her mama's lullaby, the one she sang every night as Octavia snuggled into her kelp bed. The tune was clear, woven into the very fabric of the singing sand, swelling and receding with the gentle sway of the water. As the song enveloped her, shimmering pictures, even more vivid and real than the ones in her dream, began to appear around her. They weren't in the pearl, but seemed to float in the water, shimmering illusions made of light and memory. She saw Mama's face, her eyes twinkling with love as she sang. She saw herself, a tiny pup, nuzzling into Mama's warm fur. She saw her kelp bed, soft and tangled, swaying peacefully with the currents. She saw the bright sun filtering through the green leaves, dappling the water with golden light. She saw her otter family, napping together, their soft sighs a comforting rhythm. It was home. It felt so real, so warm, so completely, utterly peaceful. Octavia felt a profound sense of contentment settle over her, a deep, quiet joy she hadn't felt since she left her kelp forest. The sadness and fear, the challenges of the journey, the scary pictures from the pearl, they all faded away, replaced by this overwhelming feeling of warmth and belonging. She closed her eyes, letting the singing sand's lullaby and the shimmering memories wash over her. It felt like Mama was right there, holding her, singing just to her. She wanted to stay here forever, in this magical place where the sand sang her Mama's song and home was all around her. This was perfect. This was what she had been searching for. Why would she ever leave this warm, beautiful, peaceful place? Octavia, Nilos' soft hum seemed distant, muffled by the sweet melody. Are you sleeping on the soft sand, Octavia? Octavia barely heard him. She was floating, lost in the sweet, comforting embrace of the singing sand and her Mama's lullaby. She felt so warm, so safe, so completely at peace. She wanted to drift here forever, never having to move, never having to face another scary surprise or a dark cave. This was better than perfect. This was truly home. But then, a different kind of sound began to break through the gentle lullaby. A strange, rhythmic thump-thump scuttle, growing louder and closer. It wasn't part of the sand's song then. A small, red blur darted into her vision. It was Charco, and he was doing a dance. Not his usual frantic scaredy pants scuttle, but a new, even sillier dance. His eyes were half closed, and his tiny legs were moving in a slow, wobbly, uncoordinated jig. He was bumping into invisible things, swaying from side to side, and occasionally letting out a tiny, muffled snore. He was doing a sleepy dance, thump-thump scuttle. Charco bumped into Nutlo, who pulsed with sleepy amusement, thump-thump scuttle. Charco bumped into Octavia's tail. He stumbled, twitched, and then, with a mighty, ungraceful flop, He landed directly on Octavia's stomach. Oomph. Octavia yelped, startled. Charko, jolted awake by the impact, immediately sprang up, his eyes wide. Goodness gracious. What was that? Did I fall asleep on your tummy, Octavia? Oh dear, oh dear. That was very unpredictable of me. He let out a nervous click, and then, completely awake, he started his usual, fast scared-a-pants scuttle, bouncing frantically. The impact, and Charko's sudden, silly, wide-awake panic instantly broke the spell of the singing sand. The shimmering memories of home faded, and Mama's lullaby, though still faintly present, seemed to recede, becoming just part of the soft chorus again. The warmth of absolute peace began to ebb, replaced by the familiar cool of the ocean. Octavia blinked, shaking her head a little. She looked at Charko, frantically scuttling, and at Nilo, who was now fully awake and pulsing with amusement at Charko's antics. A small sigh escaped Octavia. She had wanted to stay forever. The singing sand felt like the safest, happiest place in the world, but Charko, in his silly, sleepy dance, had pulled her back to the journey, back to the path the pearl was showing her. She knew, deep down, that she couldn't stay. Even though it felt perfect, this wasn't her real home. Her mama wasn't here, truly here, with warm fur and real hugs. This was a beautiful, comforting illusion, a pause on her journey. But a journey was about moving forward, about learning, about facing what came next. Oh, Charko, Octavia said, a tiny giggle escaping her, despite her reluctance to leave. You're a very silly crab. Charko stopped scuttling and looked at Octavia, his eyes still wide. I am, aren't I? Goodness. But at least I woke you up. What if a very lumpy, sleepy monster had tried to give you a tickle while you were napping? He shivered. Octavia smiled. Charko, with all his nervousness and silly dances, had, in his own way, helped her. He had reminded her that the journey wasn't over, that even in the most peaceful places, there were still paths to follow. She looked at the pearl, still glowing in her paws. It was a gentle reminder that the path continued, showing her that sometimes even the most comforting moments were just steps along the way, preparing her for what was yet to come. She might have wanted to stay in the singing sand forever, but she knew her real home and her real mama were waiting, and she had to keep going to find them. The memory of the singing sand and the sweet, comforting lullaby of her mama's song still lingered around Octavia like a soft, warm cloud. It had been hard to leave, to pull herself away from that perfect, peaceful feeling. But because of Charko's silly, sleepy dance, and the quiet understanding that this wasn't her real home, had reminded her that the journey wasn't over. Her pearl, nestled safely in her paws, still pulsed with its gentle glow. Guiding them forward, they continued to paddle through the clear, sunlit water, Nilo humming a cheerful, if often forgotten, tune, and Charko scuttling with renewed vigor. He even managed to tell a joke about a very grumpy clam, which made Octavia giggle softly. As the day stretched on, the pearl in Octavia's paws began to glow brighter. Not just its usual soft, comforting light, but a more insistent, shimmering radiance. Little pictures, like the ones it had shown before, began to dance within its depths. But this time, they weren't just flashes of happy memories or scary possibilities. These pictures were different. They showed a path ahead, swirling and beautiful, filled with new wonders and the promise of home. But at a certain point, the path seemed to split, or perhaps it seemed to require something. The pearl pulsed intensely, and a deep, soft feeling, like a whisper in Octavia's heart, seemed to come from it to move forward. "You must give something up." Octavia blinked, her big sparkling eyes wide. Give something up? What did that mean? She looked at the pearl, then at the shimmering pictures within. The path ahead looked so inviting, but the pearl was asking for something in return. The pearl pulsed again, and the feeling grew stronger. It wasn't a demanding feeling, but a gentle, knowing one. Something you hold dear. Something that has guided you. Octavia looked down at the pearl in her paws. It was her treasure. The first thing she found in the big, scary ocean. The thing that had given her the dream of Mama's hug. The very thing that was now showing her the path. How could she'll give it up? It felt like letting go of her last solid connection to hope. A piece of the comfort she had found since leaving home. A wave of confusion, then a pang of sadness washed over her. Why would she need to give up something so important to move forward? It didn't make sense. Her paws tightened around the pearl. Octavia. Nilo hummed, noticing her stillness. Is the glowy thing telling us a new story? Charco, always quick to sense a shift in mood, stopped his scuttling. Oh goodness gracious. Are there very tricky riddles involved? I don't like riddles. They are very unstraightforward. Octavia looked from the pearl to Nilo, then to Charco. Nilo, always going with the flow, never clinging to things, even his own name. Charco, nervous, but always willing to keep moving, even through scary places. They were her friends, her companions on this journey. They hadn't needed the pearl to be with her. They were simply there. She thought about everything that had happened. When she was scared and alone, the pearl had given her comfort. When the cave had shown her fake images, the pearl had helped her find the true path. It had been her guide, her little anchor in the vast, confusing ocean. But what if? What if its purpose was now complete? What if holding on to it, as precious as it was now the thing holding her back? The pearl hadn't actually gotten her home. It had shown her glimpses, given her strength. But she had been the one paddling, the one choosing to be brave. As Octavia looked at her pearl, pondering its message, a new presence emerged from the shimmering water. It was a wise old dolphin, his skin smooth and ancient, his eyes full of a deep, calm understanding. He swam towards them slowly, gracefully, his movements as fluid as the ocean currents. Little Otter, the dolphin's voice resonated in the water. A gentle, soothing sound. You face a choice. To move forward, sometimes we must learn to let go. Octavia looked at the dolphin, then back at her pearl. But this is my pearl, she whispered. It helped me so much. The wise dolphin nodded slowly. Indeed, it has served its purpose beautifully. But sometimes, what we cling to, however precious, can prevent us from seeing the new path. One of the greatest sources of suffering is the desire to control everything. We try to force outcomes, resist change, and hold on to the past. But true peace comes when we learn to let go and trust the natural unfolding of life. As he spoke, the dolphin gently nudged a beautiful, intricately swirled seashell that lay on the ocean floor. It was perfectly formed, a little work of art. Octavia watched, curious. Then, with a soft, deliberate motion of his tail, the dolphin gently broke the shell. It didn't shatter violently, but simply separated into two perfect, curved halves. Octavia gasped, her eyes wide. Why did you break it? She whispered, a pang of sadness for the beautiful shell. This shell, in its whole form, was beautiful, the dolphin explained, his voice calm. But if I had held onto it too tightly, fearing it might break, I would have missed the path ahead. And now, in two pieces, it can become something new, perhaps even more useful, or simply be returned to the sand from which it came, allowing new life to form. Sometimes things must change or break for new understanding to emerge. He paused, looking at Octavia. True peace comes when we learn to let go and trust the natural unfolding of life. The pearl has guided you, but now, the strength you found is within you. The next part of your journey may require a different kind of freedom. Octavia looked at the two halves of the seashell, then at her pearl. The dolphin's words settled into her heart, profound and clear. She looked at Nilo, who floated freely, never clinging to anything, even his own name. And she looked at Charco, who, despite his nervousness, always found a way to keep moving forward. They were her friends, her companions, and they didn't need the pearl to be with her. She had come so far, learned so much. The pearl had been a teacher, a friend, but it wasn't her home. Her home was a destination, and her strength was her own. With a deep breath that filled her small otter chest, Octavia made her decision. It was a hard one, but it felt right. It felt like a leap of faith, trusting the path, trusting herself. Slowly, gently, she opened her paws. The pearl rested there, glowing softly. She thought of Mama and home and all the lessons she had learned. "Thank you, little pearl," Octavia whispered, her voice soft but clear. "You have been so brave with me. You showed me the way, and you helped me find my courage. But now, I think I need to find the rest of the way on my own." With another gentle breath, Octavia let go. The pearl, released from her paws, didn't sink. Instead, it hovered for a moment, pulsating with a brilliant, farewell glow, brighter than ever before. It seemed to shine with understanding, a silent acknowledgement of her choice. Then, slowly, gracefully, the pearl began to float upwards, drifting away from them, its light shimmering beautifully as it ascended towards the distant surface. It looked like a tiny, ascending moon, a precious star, returning to the sky. Octavia watched it go, a pang of sadness in her heart, but also a new, liberating lightness as the pearl floated higher and higher. Growing smaller and smaller, something miraculous began to happen below them. On the sandy ocean floor, where the wise old turtle Maru had rested, a faint shimmer began to appear. It grew stronger, forming lines of light. It was the turtle's dream map. The glowing path, which had been so fleeting on Maru's shell, now spread out beneath them, clear and luminous on the ocean floor. It twisted and turned, showing currents and passages, pointing the way forward. Every detail was bright and unmistakable, stretching out before them, a clear, unmistakable guide. "Oh goodness gracious," Charco gasped, his eyes wide, completely forgetting his usual nervousness. "The sand is glowing. It's a very unlumpy, glowing map." Nilo pulsed with delight. "A very big, very bright path. It feels like we know where we're going now." Octavia looked at the glowing map, then at the fading light of her pearl, now just a tiny spark in the distance. The pearl had asked her to let go, and in doing so, it had revealed the clearest path yet. She understood now. Letting go wasn't about losing something. It was about making space for something new to appear. It was about trusting that everything happened for a reason, even the difficult choices. With a heart full of both wonder and renewed determination, Octavia took a deep breath. She was ready. The path was clear, and she carried her courage, not in a glowing pearl, but within herself. The glowing map on the sandy ocean floor shimmered brightly, a clear luminous path guiding Octavia, Nilo, and Charco forward. With the pearl gone and the wise dolphin's words echoing in her heart, Octavia felt a new lightness, a freedom she hadn't known before. Her paws moved with a confident, steady rhythm, following the illuminated lines on the seabed. A glowing path. Goodness gracious, Charco squeaked, scuttling diligently behind Octavia, his nervousness replaced by a surprising excitement. It's much easier to follow than a dream map. And it doesn't look lumpy at all. Nilo pulsed with cheerful enthusiasm. A bright road. I like bright roads. They help me remember where we are going, even if I forget where we came from. The path led them away from the soft singing sands and deeper into what felt like the very heart of the ocean. The water around them grew incredibly clear, sparkling, with tiny, unseen motes of light. It felt as though they were swimming through liquid starlight. Then, ahead of them, a new light began to bloom in the distance. It wasn't the harsh glare of the surface, nor the soft glow of Nilo, nor the ethereal shimmer of the pearl. This light was softer, richer, spilling forth in a kaleidoscope of colors. As they drew closer, Octavia gasped, her big, sparkling eyes widening with awe. They had arrived at a garden, not a garden of sand or rock, but a living, glowing, underwater wonderland. It was a magic garden underwater. Tall, luminous stalks of seaweed swayed gently, their fronds glowing with soft blues and greens. Flowers unlike any Octavia had ever seen bloomed from the ocean floor. They were made of pure light, their petals shimmering with every color imaginable: deep purples, fiery oranges, soft pinks, and brilliant yellows. Each flower pulsed with its own inner light, casting vibrant pools of color onto the seabed. Tiny, bioluminescent fish, like living jewels, flitted amongst the glowing blooms, adding to the dazzling display. The water itself seemed to hum with a gentle, joyful energy, Octavia whispered, her voice filled with wonder. It's so beautiful. Nilo drifted, his own light flaring in amazement. So many lights, so many colors. Is this where all the glowy things come from, Octavia? Even Charco was utterly speechless for a moment, his tiny eyes swiveling around, taking in every impossible bloom. Then he let out a soft, goodness gracious, no, that's not even nervous, that's just sparkly. Octavia swam slowly into the garden, her paws barely touching the soft, glowing stems. Each flower seemed to hum with a gentle presence. As she approached one, a tall, elegant bloom with petals of iridescent blue, a small, shimmering image appeared within its glowing heart. It was a picture of herself, small and shivering when she first woke up, lost in the big blue. And then, the picture shifted to another, herself offering her rainbow shell to Nilo, sharing her comfort even when she was scared. A warm feeling spread through Octavia's chest. Kindness, a soft voice seemed to whisper in her mind, a voice that was not really a voice, but a feeling of deep understanding. She had learned kindness even when she was lost and afraid. She swam to another flower, this one a fiery orange, its light dancing like a tiny flame. Within its heart, a new picture formed, herself facing the whispering quarrel, hearing its fearful words, but then remembering Mama's voice and swimming forward with a stronger heart. Bravery, the feeling resonated. She had been brave, even when her heart almost believed the scary whispers. Next, a flower with petals of bright, joyful yellow pulsed with light. Inside, a picture of Charco doing his silly sideways dance, and herself giggling with pure delight. Laughter. The feeling bubbled. She had found laughter even when the journey was hard, even when she missed Mama so much. Laughter had helped chase away the sadness. As Octavia moved from flower to flower, more images appeared. A deep purple bloom showed her listening patiently to Nilo's forgotten stories. Patience. A soft pink flower showed her deciding to let go of the pearl, even though it was hard. Trust. A vibrant green one showed her swimming through the dark. Cave. Not giving up when the illusions tried to trick her. Truth. Each flower, each shimmering picture, showed her a piece of who she was becoming. It wasn't just about finding her way home. It was about the journey itself and what she had learned. Along the way, she saw all the moments where she had been scared or sad or confused, but also all the moments where she had chosen to be brave, to be kind, to find laughter, to trust, to let go. Octavia looked at her reflection in the shimmering surface of one of the flowers. Her eyes were still big and sparkling, but they held a new depth, a new light. Her fur seemed to glow softly with the reflected colors of the garden. She wasn't just a lost baby otter anymore. She was an otter who had faced challenges, made friends, and learned so much. A wave of warmth, deeper and more profound than the singing sand, washed over her. It was a feeling of quiet, peaceful pride. Not a boastful pride, but a gentle, humble knowing. She felt proud of who she was becoming. Octavia, Nilo hummed, drifting to her side, his light reflecting in her eyes. You are very, very bright, now, like a new flower. Charco, who had been cautiously exploring the edges of the garden, scuttled back, his tiny eyes wide. Goodness gracious, Octavia, you look like you're full of sparkles. Are you going to tell jokes now too? Octavia smiled, a wide, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. I think, she said, her voice soft but strong, I think I'm learning, Charco. Learning about myself. Learning about kindness and bravery and laughter. She looked around the magical garden, each glowing flower a testament to her journey. She understood now that home wasn't just a place. It was also the strength and wisdom she carried inside her, built from every step of her journey. This garden wasn't just beautiful, it was a mirror, showing her the beautiful otter she was growing into. She was not just going home, she was bringing a new, stronger, wiser self with her, and that felt like the most precious treasure of all. The magic garden underwater, shimmering with its colorful, glowing flowers, slowly faded behind Octavia, Nilo, and Charco. Octavia felt a deep, quiet pride in her heart, a warmth that came from knowing all the good things she had learned. The glowing map on the ocean floor continued to light their way, clear and unmistakable, pointing them ever closer to home. Goodness gracious, Charco squeaked, scuttling with impressive speed. That garden was very beautiful, and no bumpy surprises. I almost forgot to be nervous there. Nilo pulsed happily. So many lights, so many colors, like a big, happy dream. Octavia smiled, her heart light. She felt ready for anything the map might show them next. She had faced talking coral, sneaky eels, dark caves, and even given up her precious pearl. She was braver now, and stronger. The glowing path on the seabed began. Too narrow, leading them towards a place where the water shimmered in a strange, unusual way. As they approached, a low, rumbling sound, like a distant whisper of thunder, grew louder. The currents around them became stronger, tugging at their fur and fins. Then they saw it. blocking the path directly ahead, stretching from the ocean floor almost to the surface, was a massive spinning water tunnel. It wasn't a tunnel made of rock or coral. It was a tunnel made entirely of water, swirling and twisting in a furious, dizzying spiral. The water inside it spun so fast it looked like a shimmering, translucent wall, curving inwards like a giant, liquid whirlwind. Strange lights, caught in the rapid current, whirled within it, making it look both terrifying and mesmerizing. The rumbling sound was the powerful roar of the spinning water. Octavia stared, her big sparkling eyes wide with a mix of awe and sudden, chilling fear. This was unlike anything they had faced before. It looked impossibly fast, impossibly strong. How could anything possibly swim through that without being spun around and around endlessly? Oh goodness gracious, no. Charco wailed, his tiny eyes fixing on the spinning tunnel. He immediately flattened himself against Octavia's fur, his legs scuttling so fast they were a blur, even though he wasn't moving forward. A giant, liquid whirlpool. It's so spinny. It will make us dizzy, and very, very surprised. Usually so serene, pulsed with a nervous flicker. Spinning water. Will it forget which way is up, Octavia? That sounds very confusing, even for me. The glowing map on the ocean floor ended right at the edge of the spinning tunnel, as if this was the last, biggest obstacle. There was no way around it. It stretched left and right as far as they could see. To continue home, they had to go through it. Octavia felt a cold knot of fear tighten in her stomach. She had been so brave, so confident, but this felt different. This felt like truly letting go of all control. If she went in there, she would be completely at the mercy of the spinning water. What if she couldn't make it? What if she got lost inside? A tiny voice, the whisper of doubt, tried to creep into her mind, like the talking choral. You're too small. You'll get swept away. You'll never get home now. She looked at the tunnel, its shimmering, swirling walls mesmerizing and terrifying. It demanded something more than just bravery. It demanded absolute trust, and she had to do it alone. The tunnel was too narrow for Nilo's wide body, and Charco would be spun into a dizzy, tiny ball instantly. It was just for her. Octavia's paws trembled slightly. She wanted to turn back, to find a different path, any path that didn't involve that terrifying spinning water. But the map ended here. This was the way home. She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to calm her racing heart. She took a deep, shaky breath, letting the cold ocean water fill her lungs and then release, just as Mama had taught her. In that moment of darkness, pushing down the fear, a familiar, comforting voice echoed in her mind. It wasn't the singing sand, or Maru, or the wise dolphin. It was Mama. You are strong inside, my little spark, Mama's voice whispered, clear and loving. Stronger than you know. Even when you feel small, your heart holds a great light. Octavia opened her eyes. The spinning tunnel was still there, vast and daunting. But Mama's words had sparked something deep inside her. You are strong inside. She had proven it every step of the way. She had faced all those scary things. She had let go of her pearl. She had learned, and she had done it all with her own strength, with her own brave heart. This tunnel wasn't just a physical obstacle. It was a test of everything she had learned. Could she trust herself completely, even when she had to give up control? A wave of quiet determination washed over her, pushing the fear aside. She didn't need to control the spinning water. She just needed to trust that her own strength, her own brave heart, would carry her through. She had her mama's love, the lessons from her journey, and the knowledge that her home was waiting. Octavia looked at Nilo, and then at Charco, who was still trying to flatten himself into the sand. "I have to go," she said, her voice small but firm. "It's the way home, but... Octavia." Charco stammered, his eyes wide with fear. "It's so spinny. What if it makes you forget where you are, like Nilo forgets his name?" Nilo bumped his soft head against Octavia's shoulder. "Go, Octavia. We will wait. And maybe I will remember to wait, even if I forget what we are waiting for." Octavia took one last, deep breath, letting it fill her entire small body. She looked at the spinning tunnel, no longer just with fear, but with a new sense of quiet acceptance. This was the final step. She closed her eyes again, picturing Mama's loving face, feeling the warmth of her hug in her memory. She didn't try to control anything, she just let go, and with a single, brave flick of her tail, Octavia launched herself forward into the swirling, spinning water tunnel, trusting herself completely. She was strong inside, and she would keep going no matter what. The spinning water tunnel roared around Octavia, a dizzying blur of light and liquid. She felt herself being swept away, tumbled and twirled, completely without control. Fear, sharp and cold, tried to creep back into her heart, but she squeezed, her eyes shut, remembering Mama's voice. "You are strong inside, my little spark." She held on to that thought, trusting herself, trusting the journey, trusting that everything happened for a reason. She didn't fight the current. She simply let it carry her, a tiny, brave otter, surrendering to the vast power of the ocean. There was a final exhilarating whoosh, a feeling of being gently pushed through the last bit of the tunnel, and then, quiet. The roaring stopped. The spinning sensation faded. A soft, familiar warmth enveloped her. Octavia slowly, cautiously, opened her eyes, and there it was. The light was soft and green, filtering through a canopy of swaying emerald leaves. The water was calm, gentle, and familiar. She felt something, soft and tangled beneath her, supporting her. It smelled of fresh salt and growing things, a scent more comforting than any lullaby. It was her kelp bed, her very own, soft, tangled kelp bed. Octavia lifted her head. Around her, nestled comfortably in the swaying kelp, were other otters. Their fur was the familiar, rich brown. Their noses twitched in sleep, and their tails draped peacefully beside them. And just a few whiskers away, a little bigger than the others, her fur a slightly richer brown, her breathing deep and even, was her mama. Octavia's heart swelled with such overwhelming joy that it felt like it might burst. She wasn't dreaming this time. This was real. She was home, and Mama was right there. She gently nudged her Mama's side, a tiny, tentative poke. Mama stirred, letting out a soft, sleepy sigh, and then slowly, her eyes opened. They were Mama's eyes, full of warmth and love, and they looked at Octavia. Mama smiled, a deep, loving smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. She stretched out a paw and pulled Octavia closer into her warm, familiar embrace. It was the hug Octavia had dreamed of, the one she had longed for, the most perfect hug in the whole wide ocean. "My little spark," Mama murmured, her voice soft with sleep and love. "You're home." Octavia snuggled deep into Mama's fur, feeling completely safe, completely loved, completely and utterly home. The long journey, the scary moments, the deep sadness, the brave choices. It all melted away in the warmth of Mama's hug. As Octavia lay there, wrapped in her mama's love, she became aware of other familiar presences nearby. A soft, rhythmic sound reached her ears. Shrek. It was a tiny, contented snoring. Octavia carefully peeked over Mama's shoulder. There, tucked cozily inside, a perfectly shaped, rather large seashell that had somehow made its way into their kelp bed, was Choco. His little red body was curled up tight, his eyes squeezed shut, and a tiny bubble of air occasionally escaped his nose with each snore. He looked completely at peace, lost in a very unnervous dream. He had found his quiet, unlumpy spot, and then a faint, watery sound, a soft, wet sniffle. Octavia looked round. Just a little further away, drifting gently between the kelp stalks, was Nilo. His glow was soft, almost sleepy, and he was pulsing with tiny, silent sobs. Octavia gently pushed herself a little from Mama's embrace and looked at Nilo. "Nilo, why are you crying?" she whispered. Nilo blinked, his large, soft eyes looking a bit confused. He pulsed, and a tear floated from his jelly body. "Crying? Am I crying, Octavia? Oh, I don't remember why. Perhaps I forgot what my tears are for, and they just happened." He sniffled again, and then, completely forgetting why he was upset, he floated off a little, bumping gently into a kelp stalk with a happy hum. He was just being Nilo, forgetting and yet perfectly content. And then a deep, resonant hum, like the very heartbeat of the ocean, vibrated through the water. It was far away, a soft, ancient sound, but Octavia recognized it. It was Maru, the wise old turtle, humming nearby. He wasn't visible, but his presence was a comforting, steady anchor, a reminder of the wisdom that guided the ocean. He was there, watching over the deep, even from a distance. Octavia smiled. Everything was exactly as it should be. Her mama was here, her family was here. Charco had found his quiet, sleepy comfort. Nilo was being Nilo, forgetting everything but being happy. And the wise ocean, through creatures like Maru and the dolphin, had guided her home. Her paw, still instinctively reaching, touched something smooth and cool beside her. It wasn't the glowing pearl she had given up. It was her shiny shell, her very first treasure, the one she had held close when she was lost. It lay there, waiting for her, perfectly safe, exactly where she had left it. It was a reminder that even when things seemed gone, true treasures always found their way back to you, or were always with you in your heart. Octavia held her shiny shell gently, feeling its smooth, familiar surface. She looked around at her kelp bed home, at her loving mama, at her funny friends. She felt the gentle sway of the water, the warmth of the sun filtering through the kelp. A deep sense of gratitude filled her heart, swelling like the tide. She whispered, her voice soft and full of love, "Thank you, ocean. Thank you for the journey. Thank you for the friends. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for showing me how strong I am. Thank you for bringing me home." She had been lost, but now she was found, and in finding her way home, she had also found herself. And that was the most beautiful discovery of all. And so Octavia drifted peacefully in her kelp bed, snuggled safe and sound in her mama's warm embrace. The ocean hummed its soft, sleepy tune, and even though the big journey was over, the quiet pride in her heart and the wisdom she had gathered would stay with her always. Octavia's story reminds us that even when we feel small and a little bit lost, or when things are scary and don't make sense, everything happens for a special reason. Sometimes the tricky parts of our journey are actually secret lessons, helping us grow brave and strong, just like the diamond that became shiny under pressure. What might seem like a hard moment can even be protecting us, or leading us to something even better, like a closed door opening to a new, wonderful path. Octavia learned that instead of holding on tightly to everything, or trying to make things go exactly our way, it's okay to let go and trust the gentle flow of life. Because true calm and happiness come when we allow things to unfold naturally. And when we do that, we find that our heart fills with patience, bravery, and a special kind of peace. Home isn't just a place you find on a map. It's also the strong, loving, and wise heart you become during your journey. And when you trust yourself and let go, you might just find your way to the most wonderful surprises. And to the greatest love of all. We hope you loved Octavia's story as much as we loved telling it. If you did, please give us a like, share it with a friend who might enjoy a cozy bedtime tale, and subscribe so you don't miss our next adventure. Sweet dreams.